Hold on. We're live. Just start. Just start.
You should. Okay. Three, two, one. Hello, Internet. Today is May 28th, and it is the start of Google I/O. The keynote kicked off a couple of hours ago, and Chaim was good enough to watch it for us. Chaim, the first question I have for you is, what color was Sundar Pichai's sweater?
Purple.
That's kind of right. It was teal. Okay, that's Chaim Cohen of
Well,
HaimTime.com.
here's the problem. The keynote is probably still going as we record this.
It was a little long, yeah?
It was. It was Lord of the Rings long. You needed a break.
Okay, but it is only one day, so they're good for us that way. And Paul N. Shapiro of SearchWilderness.com, did you get to see the clothing that Sundar was wearing?
No, I relied on a live blog, and thankfully I didn't have to pay attention to any sort of clothing.
And Chaim, just the first thing that I want to get out of the way, I want to know whether or not there was any space action, if anyone jumped out of a plane, or anything like that at this year's I/O.
Well, so I thought it started at 1 o'clock. So when I turned it on at 12:45, they were just going through the numbers. So that must have meant they started at 12:30. Which okay, so there's no space jumping there. I turned it off at 2:25, and there was still no space jumping going on. So
Before
I'm
we
gonna
get
say no.
before we get into the meat of this episode, though, apparently there was something to do with a whale that the audience really liked. Did you catch that, Chaim?
I did not.
Okay, well, everyone should Google I/O whale if you're in for a treat. Okay, so no surprises here, but some pretty nice updates. Let's start with probably the most important thing, the thing that'll have the most far-reaching implications for later on. It's Android M, right, Chaim?
See, I thought we were going to go a little lighthearted and compare the presenters to the Apple presenters.
Oh, we can. I think that's more like a webcomic thing, Chaim. And if
Because there were definitely some correlations. Like I found my Phil Schiller,
Mhm.
the guy who was I don't even know his name. I don't even know who
Well,
his
if you
short
don't know,
sleeves.
don't burden the listeners' ears with your trying to figure out the names of these people. Take some screenshots, put them together, and when Johnny the Google's Johnny Ive shows up, you let us all know. Okay? Can we get back to Android M now, which I thought you would be very
Yes,
into discussing?
macadamia nut.
No, Chaim. Everything else is a candy, and now all of a sudden we're into the nuts.
No, or a dessert. No, this is the code name. It's not.
Paul, have you ever had a big bowl of macadamia nuts for dessert? Is that no longer the same? Key lime. You can have a key lime pie. You can have a lollipop.
It is an ingredient that is used in dessert.
It's an ingredient. Okay, fine. So it's Android M, and it's not macadamia nut. We can cross that one off. But sum it up for us.
Well, it's not. It still keeps the same material design. What they did is I guess, enhanced it. So the big thing. I saw a few big things. The first thing is app permissions. They got right off the bat and said they're going to take the iOS approach to app permissions. So as you need
This is
the
not a
camera,
summary. This is not a summary.
No,
What I wanted you to say is that
Okay.
this is the polishing edition of Android, right? I mean, this is not.
okay, it's a polishing of material design.
Thank you. And coincidentally, they're on the M letter, which works for material design. Okay, so go for it from there. Take us through all of the things that Google is putting into Android that iOS already has, and then we'll do the flip afterward, okay?
But I will say a lot of this is seeing what Apple did last year and changing it. I didn't see too many, this is revolutionary. So the first thing, and we knew this, was they were going to change app permissions. So basically now you can approve permissions as you get them. So as you turn the camera, it's going to say, and you're going to be able to, you're going to be able to shut them off in settings. So you're going to be able, more granular app permissions, which I think for the most part Apple does. As you get them, it says, and then you can go in and I think you can revoke them all, or you can change them.
You know, it's not so.
Very happily. In fact, I think a lot of what was announced was playing catch up with Apple. Which,
I think so
I
too.
feel like it's usually the reverse. It's usually Apple playing catch up with Google nowadays. But
Right, this is not an envelope pusher. This is kind of an acknowledgement, and reasonably so, that Android needs to kind of pause, meditate for a while. That's why it's a letter M. They're going to meditate, and it needs to be polished up. As far as the app permission thing goes, I don't think it's so cut and dry that as needed permissions come up, because it can be annoying, frankly. And app designers on iOS have to design around it, where they have to tell you, click the microphone now, so that by the time you actually want to use the microphone, you don't get a modal dialog box that you have to click away.
Well, I remember the same thing. As I use my iPad, I click on something. It says, this app would like to use your contacts. The demo showed the exact same thing. As you touch the microphone, it will say, do you want to use the microphone? And you only have to do it once. It's only the single time.
Right. If it's more granular permissions that are... in reality, what's going on here is an easier access to the permissions, regardless of if it's at the top of using the app or as you use each feature. It's just kind of a more consideration of how it's done.
So,
and there are, but apparently there are actually fewer update categories.
well, look, I like the fact that they gave all the permissions right when you download it, so you're not surprised after you download it, it needs all this stuff. But it's good to say, it's good to also show when you're using the camera, saying, hey, or do you want us to use the camera?
Okay.
Either way, it doesn't matter. I like it. I'm happy with it. Let's move on.
Okay, so there's something that you'll hopefully Chaim will be able to explain to me. So it's that Chrome can be accessed within an app, as we're all used to using Safari as the rendering engine in iOS apps. Was that not previously the case? I didn't even know that.
They would take you out of the app and they would shift you into Chrome. This will pop up a Web UI kit. So on the iOS side is Web UI kit. That will be Chrome and have Chrome will do everything, but it'll be inside the app rather than shifting you outside the app.
I had no idea that Android didn't have that. It's kind of.
I think here's the difference, Paul. I think so. Paul, think about on iOS. If you load Safari in an app, does that still let you use Safari's saved passwords and stuff? I think that's
I'm not sure.
See,
well, look, take Tweetbot. So take Tweetbot for the iPad. If I get a link and I click on it and it takes me to Facebook, I have to reauthorize Facebook. And for me, that's a pain in the neck because I get a login email and I have to put a two-factor code and everything else. Here it's saying it's not the way it is. It's going to be the old instance of Chrome just inside the app.
So, okay, as you described it, I mean, that's certainly progress. And just to continue the iOS comparison, Paul, I'm sure you and I are familiar with this. iOS lets you pre-authenticate Facebook and Twitter and use an iOS-style dialog box to approve, if the app developer has their app up to date, approve Facebook or Twitter, kind of using the iOS level not authentication, but the fact that you're logged in. So it's needed. It makes you use apps more, frankly. And it seems like between the first thing that we talked about and this, it kind of decreases the level of friction that the average user will feel loading up an app on Android, which can be kind of, it can feel a little intimidating, I think.
This sounds better than the Apple implementation, because for iOS it's limited really to Twitter and Facebook, but it sounds like you can do the same thing with like Pinterest or any other.
The good part is now you have what's it called, LastPass integration or 1Password integration. Any of the extensions that overlay on the browser are now integrated in, which makes my life and everyone's life easier.
Okay, so the first two things that we discussed are certainly polishing up previous features. The next thing, at least now I'm going over the Verge's summation, sort of, but Google is altogether claiming better battery life via a feature called Doze, which seems like, it's along the lines of app nap or something, but it after a certain amount of time of not touching the device, apparently, the apps will go into a low power state, which I think is interesting, right? I mean, as long as you can catch up when you pick up the device.
The conspiracy theory is, or the underlying idea is, I think they took what Nest did, and they try to learn when you're around in the house and when you're using it to have a historic view of when you use it. So it does not waiting 8 hours. If you're not using it for an hour, it'll go into a low power state. It'll know that you only use this device between these hours, and let's say overnight it will put in a low power state or whatever else.
I don't know if there's any indication of that, but I think that this to me reminds me of the feature where if you move the device a certain amount, it never locks, right, to indicate that it wasn't off your person or something like that, right? Isn't that
Yeah, they have that.
So it seems like it's an extension of that into the power saving arena. And just as a throw-in, USB-C is supported by Android. I don't know what that entails. It sounds like it's more than a hardware issue, that it's also a software thing that they had to integrate. But I'd like to say at this point, the other thing is that native fingerprint authentication, iOS level, I'm sorry, oh wow, I didn't mean to replace the word OS with iOS, but look, I just did that. But OS level fingerprint authentication is now supported by Android. I didn't know that it wasn't, that Samsung had to build it into its devices and LG into its whatever, but it needs to happen.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's take a step off. Well, where I looked at their demos, we never saw a device that had where do you put the fingerprint sensor? Take the Nexus 5, which has no buttons on the front.
Mm-hmm.
Take the Nexus 6 that has no buttons on the front. Take the Galaxy S series, which does have a home button.
Well, it's that horizontal thing, right?
No. Yeah, I mean it's oblong rather than like a circle, but it's in the same spot as the iOS home button, or the G series, the LG G series, where it's on the back with the power button. Mm-hmm. So on a Nexus device, where do you presumably put it? Where would be the best spot? Because I feel like this has to be a physical button.
Paul, what is I'm getting at? I have no idea what.
No, where would you put it? You take a phone. Where would you want?
You put it
on the power button.
Okay, so Apple, of course, does not do it on the power button per se, but the home button, a lot of the time, can function as the wake up button.
But the Nexus program doesn't want a physical home button, so they're going to have to put one in.
That's what you were getting at, though. Huh?
Yeah. So I was thinking maybe next to the camera on the back.
It doesn't. I mean, that's been done, but the issue here is that it's an OS level acceptance of the fingerprint, that third parties don't have to do any tweaking to make it work. If what you're getting at is that it's just an overall kind of acceptance of the fingerprint as the unlock mechanism or a security mechanism, that's important. And I'll be honest, like thinking about the iPhone 5S and the 6, which I've of course been using both of them, for a while. It feels like a must-have, especially as we get into Android Pay, which was announced too. And there's no comparison between using Touch ID and using any of the swipe mechanisms. It's always a pleasant surprise. It's a pleasant surprise, except when I just want to check the time on my iPhone. When I wake up the phone with my thumb on the home button, and by the time I look at the device, it's already unlocked. And Paul, I don't know if do you have those do you have that same dexterity that I do? Can you do that? So imagine your phone is in your pocket, screen toward your thigh, and I reach down with my right hand with my thumb on the home button. By the time I've woken the phone up by pressing it, it's already unlocked. Do you see
Don't worry.
I mean?
Don't answer that, Paul. You know why? Because your Apple Watch is coming, and you will never have to worry about this.
No, you still have to. You still have to.
Yeah,
there's no
fingerprint. Yeah.
Yeah, you still have to do it.
But yes, Justin, I know exactly what you're saying, and absolutely that is the right way. You put your phone in upside down, so your thumb is very close to the top in the phone, and by the time you have it looked at, it's already unlocked.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so probably the coolest thing, and one of the things that is very googly, is Google Now on tap. So it's contextually aware Google Now beyond. But the context is okay. It was previously contextually aware, but now the context includes what is going on the device, which is very smart, very cool, and
very scary. It's very scary.
Okay, so it's
scary.
Is it less scary than them considering the time of day, your location, your previous search history? I mean, all that they're adding is kind of like considering what's on the screen.
There's no difference. From my understanding, there's no difference in the access to data that they have now versus before. The only difference is they build functionality against what
it's one of those. It's one of those. Nobody cares about the meta collection of data, but as soon as you put it on a map and you can trace where you were, and someone can publish that, then that's where it becomes scary. I'm not saying this is absolutely cool.
You're just ignoring what Paul said, because what you're complaining about has nothing to do with this feature edition.
I feel like, okay, so if you push it, it's going to scan your email and say, oh, would you? So if
That's what Google now does. That's what it's been doing since its inception.
No, I feel like you have to put the effort into it rather than now not having to do anything. I don't know. It's scary.
If you're playing a song on the phone and you use pronouns, okay, it knows who the pronoun refers to. So if you say, what is, the example that was used in the keynote is, if Skrillex happens to be playing on your phone, I do not know Skrillex's real name, but if you say, what is his real name, it knows who his refers to. It doesn't. It's not the person that you last emailed. It gets that. Google can do this in a way that Apple can't, and I don't think we'll not be able to do for a long time.
Is this the killer feature? Is this the new feature that Apple's going to try and leapfrog next week?
I don't think Apple can even attempt to tackle this. But this is the most impressive thing, in my opinion, out of Google I/O.
This is something that Apple, I think, is going to push into lifestyle management, and I think that Siri they should be embarrassed about up until, I mean, it still doesn't work well for me, even today. And after getting the Amazon Alexa and seeing how well the Alexa can pick out my saying Alexa without a lot of false positives and with 99% accuracy, better than that. The fact that Hey Siri barely ever works pisses me off, and it's useless. But getting back to Google owns this area right now because they, one, know more about their users, and two, have just their R&D was better spent, or they have better engineers or something, because they can answer questions Apple can't. I mean, it won't be able to, I think, for a long time.
Well, look, I was going to say, I think just agreeing with everyone, this is it, and I think when you have to make the difference between Android and Apple, this is going to be the deciding point.
But Google still is going to provide the functionality on iOS because that's their game. The technology has to exist to be able to answer a question like this, right? If I say, and I don't think that Apple's going to do this for me very quickly, but I could almost see Google doing it with Inbox, but say something like this: Google, give me a list of the people that emailed who are in my contacts list who have emailed me over the last week that I haven't gotten back to, or something. To build that search query for me and to say, John emailed you on May 1st and you didn't get back to him yet. What do you want to do? And I want to be able to say, okay, send him a text, set up a calendar appointment, and go from there.
I mean, Google, the calendar has that. You can say, make a repeating appointment make an appointment the fourth Wednesday of every month.
That's telling, semantically speaking, that's telling it what to do. I want it to be able to answer a question, even if it's worded more casually.
I think it's coming.
Okay, so that's part of what Google now on top of it expands the concept.
And then the part also with that is the sharing features became a lot. I don't want to say iOS-y, but if you're sharing, it brings up your most shared on the top. So if I share everything with Justin or my wife or whatever, it comes up. It knows.
Different time. Okay.
It sort of knows who to share with the most. Okay, next. What do you want next?
Well, okay. So I want to stay a little bit more in Android, but I'll just list some of these off. I think they're making a push more into offline storage for both YouTube and Maps. There's a little bit of that previously, but they announced it today specifically for developing countries, which is cool. There's, I guess, more polishing of Android Wear and Android Auto, and I think that they're going into Android Pay a little bit, and I think that, like I said, when Apple Pay came out, that's huge. That really locks people in, and to get a little bit of a percentage of everyone's purchases of everything is a huge amount of money.
Well, look, you have to remember that Google Wallet had this functioning a while, and I think that it really took Apple to
what you're missing though is that Apple did the smart thing, the thing that if you plan it out on a whiteboard, you might not have necessarily chosen this to begin with. They worked with the bank, so people are using their existing credit cards, their existing debit cards to make the purchases. I think Apple might actually go. Well, okay, but Okay, then maybe it took Apple.
Well, no, I think what really did it is the fact that we have to go to chip and pin, and all the retailers know that they have to buy new terminals, and having to buy a new terminal, you're obviously going to get one with NFC built in. Because, well, I don't know if they're going to sell it without it built in, and now you can have that badge, Apple Pay, and Apple just rode that wave. I think that's really the catalyst. But here's the thing: everyone who said they've used Apple Pay says that, wow, it was amazing. And have they done it since? I know very few people who have continually done it.
Apple's going to do two things. I think they're going to Starbucksify Apple Pay such that you can put a bunch of money into Apple Pay at the front using a debit card, and then only use Apple Pay for all the transactions thereafter. Meaning that and then Starbucks, when they do that with the Starbucks cards, that means that they only have to pay one processing fee to the credit card companies, even if every $50 instead of every $5 that someone spent. So that saves them.
Is Apple a bank? I mean,
well, I think they're going to bankify themselves if that's works.
Well, no,
and the loyalty program, which I think could be huge. All right, but let's keep it on Google I/O. Was that Paul?
Yeah. So Android Pay to me seems so close to Apple Pay, it's ridiculous. Like the interface that they showed, the little UI, like with the little credit cards on the screen, looked identical to what I've seen from Apple Pay. Even the name Android Pay, like they couldn't come up with something a little bit more original, like Android Buy. I don't.
Well, remember,
is it an acknowledgement that the pay services are really fundamental and like a commodity? Or, I mean, that's a good point, Paul, because given if they called, I don't know, their fingerprint reading stuff Android ID instead of Touch ID, you'd say to yourself, wow, the trademark lawyers are going to have a field day with this one. But yeah, Chaim, I'm throwing that to you.
I mean, here's Google Wallet. Oh, I should have.
The name thing is interesting. I agree with you, Paul. It's
I think Paul's right. But what I did see, and I don't know if anybody knows this, is Amex was predominantly displayed, whereas before, well, two things happened. One, Amex was never predominantly displayed. What they did is they charged a MasterCard and made a MasterCard charge because they didn't get Amex's approval. Now they did. And Sprint wasn't listed as part of their 4 carriers.
I don't even know what you're talking about now. You're talking about the ones that it's pre-installed. We're spending too much time on this. I would like to say that HBO Now is coming to Android, and I thought it would take longer. I thought it might be iOS exclusive for longer, but I think that's cool and a fair thing for HBO to do. They did some virtual reality stuff, but the thing I want to kind of veer to the side to make sure that we get to it. They're doing the right thing by photos, and it's basically unlimited storage for all photos.
Well, hold on. That needs like 5 minutes. So.
Well, where are we at on time?
We got 7 minutes, but before we get to there, we didn't talk about Weave and Brillo. Basically, the home automation, where they're going to make one app and they're going to try to open source or an open source license everything. So you don't have a Nest app and you don't have a Philips app and you don't have a Tesla app. You have everything in one. And I think, and the interface they did show looks very, very nice. And
it's exactly the type of thing that people are much more comfortable having Apple do. It's just,
and I like the fact that Google is going to take control of the security.
Yeah,
I always like
Apple hasn't done this, and there's a need for that sort of infrastructure.
They're doing it. HomeKit. They announced HomeKit, and it's going to be bigger at this year's Worldwide Developers Conference. They're doing HomeKit. Let's put that to the side, hon. Brillo and Weave are kind of important. I'm sure there's tons of home automation and lifestyle management features that are going to come to the fore. I mean, garage door openers, light switches, but it's not going to seem so Jetsonsy. It's going to become the type of thing, just like using your fingerprint to unlock a phone. It will become the de facto way that we get by. Not every light switch is going to do it. Not every garage door opener. But there's going to be this certain realm where people expect consumer electronics and appliances to interact with their smart devices. But yes, that is something that could take a long time. Let's use the last 5 minutes on photos, okay? Google Plus was not touched for this year and last year. I mean, basically, it's a smart move by Google, I think, not to duplicate Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, even though they are duplicating Pinterest a little bit in Google Plus, and to make themselves the thing that kind of exists around those to help you manage those. And part of doing that is now they've made it really easy for me to decide to use Google as the my main or sole photo backup system, because they increased by a huge amount the maximum size of the photos that don't count against your storage to 16 megapixels. And Google amazes me when I type in dog in Delaware, I will get pictures of my dog when I was with him in Delaware. And that is something Apple might never do. And it's amazing. If I wanted to show people when I was in Thailand, I met this Thai woman. I wanted to show her pictures, and Google Photos got it for me immediately, even though they weren't on iPhone. Anyway, it's huge. It's outside of Google Plus, and they launched it alongside the Keynote, and it works perfectly. There's you two can have at it. I'm telling you, it's awesome. It's great.
Well, look, I'm playing with it now, and look, Photos was I thought one of the killer apps other than Hangouts for Google Plus. I put all my photos there, and everyone knows I share the photo links on Facebook because, I don't know, I rather Google have the photos and go from there. But I'm playing with the interface now. It looks really cool. You can keep these links, and they keep them for you. So if you share a link with somebody, it's there, and if you forget what it is, it has a list of all the links and who you're sharing it with. The interface looks really nice. I think it's a hit. And you know what? If you haven't downloaded Photos to your computer, you may want to, just to back up everything. It backs up for free, and it does phenomenal, whatever they want to call it, machine learning.
It's very, very fast. The ability to, if I type in something like very abstract, like meat, into my photos. Okay, I'm searching my photos for meat. Like 3 years ago, I mean, it is just flabbergasting to me. Okay, on January 9th, 2013, I bought an undercooked chicken at the Fresh Grocer in New Brunswick, which is now out of business. And I took pictures of it before I returned it because it was so undercooked. I typed meat into the photo search in Google, and this was a pre-existing feature, but it's just so it's the new way of doing whatever the tweaks they did in the back end. It is so fast. I have this picture of undercooked meat, and it's amazing. That is amazing to me.
It's pretty unbelievable.
Well, the issue I have, because of course I have issues with this, is that I use a full-frame Sony A7, which is 18 megapixels, takes RAWs that I kind of want to store, but I'm okay with just having the JPEGs. But it doesn't geolocate. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to manually geolocate it to get the cool stuff of baby in Delaware or baby in DC or whatever it is.
Just whenever you do photos like that, take one or two on your phone as well.
Absolutely. That's what I have to do sometimes.
But I'll say this, something that is just the rollout of this was really impressive because I was previously using the Google Plus app in iOS to auto backup my photos, and I installed the Photos app, used the same icon all around now. It's nice. And without having to update the Google Plus app, after enabling Photos on iOS, I went to Google Plus, the Plus app, to try to kind of double update, double upload, and see if it would screw it up. And right there it said another app is backing up your photos. The only thing is I got a terabyte of Google Drive storage so that I could upload my photos at a full resolution rather than the lower resolution, and now I don't need that because I'm never going to hit more than 16 megapixels. So this is just like a gift to the internet at large, and letting you share out of it to Facebook and Twitter natively, it's awesome. And
why couldn't they just go unlimited upload? We don't care, just unlimited upload.
Because maybe they don't want to get into a situation where they have to then do a Verizon and say unlimited doesn't mean unlimited. Within these constraints, unlimited means unlimited. Paul,
why did they have to say 18 megapixels? Why couldn't they say all JPEGs?
Paul, do you do iCloud Photo or anything, or what's your photo back?
I can't use iCloud because I instantly run out of space. Like all my photos are taken on my phone. So that ends up taking up a lot of data. I could never afford to use iCloud. This makes storing photos in the cloud a lot more achievable. It's something I can actually do now. And
this is just 100% a win in the Google column. And the other thing that iCloud Photos still doesn't do, unless you pay for the storage, and it's just the tiered pricing is just obnoxious. It doesn't store it forever. It only still lets you sync between devices, and it's just not. Everything else is in the cloud. Like when you send an email, imagine it just like the idea that you have to back up your own emails. Essentially, you only have 30 days to back up your emails. If you don't have it on one of your computers, the email gets deleted after 30 days. It's kind of insane. And I don't know. To me,
that's time.
Okay, between the photos and the changes to Google Now, it shows where Google's strengths are, and these are big wins for it. And so yes, I'm going to give you a plus that you remembered Sundar's sweater color. Okay, that's what I have to say.
Okay.
All right, this has been in 30 some episode number talking about Google I/O in 2015. Thanks for listening.
Bye.